Okay, I'll officially call the meeting to order. Moving on to item 2, will you kindly stand and join me while we pledge allegiance to our flags? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 3, is anyone signed up for public comment? No one's here. Okay. Any consideration for adjustments? Nothing at all. Everybody's sprinkler systems aren't on yet, so that's good. Consent agenda. Does any director have any issues on any of the consent agendas? The only one I have is item 5, the minutes, the meeting. Trivial, but you said the meeting was called to order at 8 o'clock. It's really 8:30. It was called to order. So if you want to change it, fine. If you don't, that's fine too. Do I have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion carries. Good morning.
Morning.
Okay. I'm going to call to order. Please make the changes that Mindy is here. Regular agenda, item 10, the SJRA monthly report. Chris, welcome.
Well, thank you. The only thing I kind of wanted to point out is on page 52. This time of year, we do take the excess funds information that we have from the previous fiscal year to the audit committee, Woodlands Water, and then the trustees, as well as the MUDs. So that information has been prepared. It is in your packet. It is a draft at this point in time because we have to wait till after 180 days of the fiscal year to ensure we have at least 90% revenue for the resolution. But at this point, we're at 102%. So I doubt we're going to lose 4 or 5 million in the month of February. But usually what we'll do is come back and we'll say, hey, we have this list of projects that need to be funded. We can either fund them with the excess funds or put them in next year's budget. Or there's something in the project plan we need to pull forward. A whole lot of different ways we come up with projects. This year, looking at it, a lot of our projects were too large to fund with excess funds. We didn't have any smaller items. So we've recommended to return all of the excess funds from FY24 to the MUDs. And that's what you'll see on the pages 50 through probably 59 or so. What that means is there's $5.1 million worth of excess funds in FY24. We're recommending return. MUD 1 gets back just about 350,000. 350 million would be a bigger. So I do understand, I wasn't at the trustees meeting, but I understand the trustees acted on this pending being above 90%. So that means next month our board will approve it, hopefully at their board meeting, and then return it in April.
This is reviewed. This is like a yearly thing.
This is an annual thing. So after the annual audit is done, which is usually in January, and after our board approves it, that's when it's actually determined that excess funds are or aren't there. And then we do the presentation.
How they determine the 90% of 3 months of operating? I mean, is that determined from the previous year or?
It's based on the current year, and the calculation is on page 51. And there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into it related to all the cash that we have on hand. So
It's a very lot year to year.
I'm sorry,
It's very lot year to year.
the excess funds amount?
No, the operating and maintenance, the 90%. That
No.
value, no,
Not really.
it stays the same.
It's been pretty stable here in the Woodlands for a while. If you're like GRP, for example, that's constantly growing, then that 90-day reserve, 3 months definitely does change quite a bit. But in the Woodlands, it goes up basically maybe 1% a year or so. That's all I have unless you have any questions.
There's no action we need to take on this today. So it's not on the agenda anyways, too. So
The trustees have already approved it pending 90%.
Just information to let you know you're getting some money back.
anybody have any questions?
The only concern I have with that is we presently have about 16 months operating reserve, which is kind of pushing the upper limit of what is recommended by the Water Development Board, which means that we might, it might trigger a refund to the people in our mud. And I'm not sure we really want to do that with the upcoming large expenditures for AC replacement and the wastewater treatment plant, number one.
So there's no legal requirement that would be triggered for a refund. We talk about, 1.5, 2 year goal for operating reserve. That's set by your staff. That's not anything that's a legal trigger that if you go over that, similar to, you may be thinking about like the rollback tax. If you generate more maintenance tax revenue than whether you're a developed or developing district, then you have to lower that rate. That's not the case with your operating reserve. So there's a lot of discussion, as you all know, about the plan for wastewater treatment plant, about AC pipes, as well as the internal lines and ditches. Yeah, so there's probably a lot of things coming down the pike that are going to require attention. So I think you're okay.
What also makes me feel a little comfortable is that the interest we're getting on our funds is greater than the rate of inflation. So we're not losing value in that.
All right. Item number 11, spring break detention study.
I do have an update on that, and as we reported last, I guess in December, that the contract's been re-upped and the consultant is back to work on it. They have scheduled a next town hall meeting. There's actually two. One will be in Waller, as it was, I guess a couple years ago. That'll be on April 21st in Field Store. And I'll get the specific location for it. It's in, if you went, I was not here, but if you went to the first one, it's in the same spot. And then that follow-up will be on April 28th here in the Woodlands of the Township. So we'll do an update on that project.
Okay, any questions? All right, moving on item 12.
Yes, sir.
Insurance report. Good morning.
So good morning. Gave a little update at the trustee meeting regarding the legislative session. The House has finally assigned committee chairs and assignments so they can start to function. I have heard that the Ledge Council that reviews bills before they're introduced is already backed up. So as we expected this session with the House needing to choose new leadership, the plumbing there is a bit clogged up and it's going to take a while for that to get resolved. So we'll see how it goes. Bills, of course, are being introduced that we're monitoring. We talked about a few of those in the trustee meeting last week. Very early. I usually caution folks not to get too worked up over bills really early in the session before you detail which ones have some momentum and which ones don't, because typically there's 85+% kill rate on bills that are introduced. So of every bill, 100 bills get introduced, only 15 usually make it across the finish line. So we'll continue monitoring and we'll bring you all bills that seem like they have momentum that you need to be aware of as time goes on. But it's game on in Austin. Happy to answer questions if you have.
How long does this session last?
Goes until the end of May, so 5 months every 2 years. And we joke that, if we really wanted them to government, we'd have 2 months every 5 years.
But they can call,
The governor
which they
can call
normally
a
do.
special session only for specific items. So there is a limited ability, which of course the governor used quite often after the last session. But, it's at the governor's prerogative.
All right. Anything else?
That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Item 13, approval of establishing meeting places.
So that's on the Google Drive. We talked about this for some of the upcoming meetings that Eric has proposed to talk about some of the River Authority related issues. And since there could potentially be deliberation, and these would be called by Woodlands Water as opposed to just the informational from the River Authority. We need to set up additional meeting places because we talked about before that this location really isn't conducive to, the large gatherings. So we've selected the community center across the street that Shelley's been able to get reservations for I think a couple of the meetings. Need to make sure that the timing's going to work in terms of the publication. We have to publish notice before we can use them. But we can visit about that.
This is all for the compliance with the Open Meeting Act.
Correct. And so we've reiterated that this is an out of district area for everybody except Mud 6, because this is physically located in Mud 6. And then we've got the community center, as I mentioned, and then the township office. I think there were some challenges getting reservations for some of these initial meetings at the township. You can certainly see being able to use the township facilities in the future for large gathering meetings. So that's the purpose of the order. We're required by the water code to adopt an order that establishes out of district meeting locations. And then we also have to publish that notice. So you'll probably be seeing that if you read the Courier. That'll be coming up after it's adopted by the districts.
Okay. All right, I'll make the motion to approve the order establishing the meeting places.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, item 14, consideration prohibited technology.
Affectionately referred to as the TikTok order.
Yes.
So there's executive summary in there, so I won't belabor it too much. You've seen a lot in the news about federal legislation regarding TikTok and the president's stay on that ban, and then rotating list of suitors who may want to buy the U.S. operations. Well, the legislature's also passed a law that prohibits government entities such as the district from having TikTok and related applications on government-owned or leased devices. So for 95+% of MUDs, this isn't a practical matter. They're required to adopt the order, but there's no equipment that would be really subject to compliance. Here, as a lot of times in the Woodlands we're unique. I do actually have equipment that is owned by Woodlands Water and maybe leased as well. So I have visited with Eric. He said, if they are in compliance, we will have the order adopted by all the districts, and we'll make sure it's compliant going forward. Judge, that you'll have to have the Chinese steal your data on your personal devices.
All right. Is there a motion to accept policy number 70?
So
moved. There's a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Updated One Water Task Force.
No update this month.
Okay. Receive item 16, the general manager's report.
Just update you on a few things. We are continuing running through all of the ditches around the woodlands to identify not only identify the asset, but also the condition of the ditches and piping going in and out of the ditches. So that continues on. We will, as a reminder, we will utilize that data to build a capital improvement plan going forward. So we'll be able to see what those expenditures might need to look like going forward.
How far along are you?
Probably 25% or so.
It's a big job.
It's well, it is. And mainly the initial step is we have to stop at every single asset to capture it.
Yeah.
Once it's captured going forward, we can just run through and do spot checks. We don't have to, we're not collecting the data on size and condition and all the, the specifics of that particular asset.
Yeah.
So once we have it in the system, then we'll be able to run through the ditches a lot quicker. We've developed a kind of a routing schedule that we'll utilize as well going forward for more regular reviews. So just heavy lifting at the front. Did want to update you on the GRP. The GRP meeting would have been my first, was canceled due to the freeze in January. So next regular meeting is coming up in I guess about a week, next week. And so I'll be attending that. As I did mention to the trustees, I met with SGRA to get kind of an orientation on the GRP itself. And then I was given a packet that we went through that. I also made a packet for Brad Houck, and then also met with him to go over that and kind of talk about some goals and things that we go forward. So that's all moving forward. We did have a community work group meeting a couple weeks ago. I think it went very well. Talked a lot about the relationship between Woodlands Water and SGRA and MUD's responsibility on what pipe and what assets whose. And then also talked quite a bit about how we would fund a particular repair if something broke, depending on kind of whose it was, whether it was an SGRA asset or a MUD asset. So we talked a lot about that as well. Didn't talk about any specific projects, but just talked about kind of the general idea of who has what's responsibilities whose, and then how do we fund things in general.
It was well done. It was very interactive. It made people engage. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, I'm getting a sense, just kind of reading the audience, that people are really engaged and paying attention.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited about that because it's important that, that occur.
Yeah.
And then the
Is
other
any of
thing,
that information going to be put out on John's monthly reports with the general public, and just how things work?
yeah, let me look at that. I think we've got some of it already out. I don't know if the Google Drive stuff is available. The CWG stuff, is
I
that
think it's
just
just available to the work.
for the working group? Yeah. We'll get you the information.
I think some of it's gonna be put on that project website too,
Correct.
right?
So far, most everything's on the website. The specific slide deck for that meeting, probably not at this point. But we can get you that information. It's not a secret.
I was just wondering if we were going to let the general public be able to have access to it so they can see what's going on.
We will, we'll take that under. Right. Another thing I was gonna update everyone on is, we spent a good bit of time going through those matrix, and originally I was, to give them to the consultant by the end of January. And they reached out and said, we'd rather now have them at the end, in April. So, they're gonna continue on through their report. I've held on to them, so they've not gone public. And I'll held on to them until they're ready to take those under, consideration, once they get a little further along with their analysis.
Why
Get one from
why the
everybody.
delay?
It's not really a delay. They had initially said they would want them by, I think, the end of January. But then at the last trustee meeting, I guess last month, it was authorized to do some additional evaluation of the structural integrity of the walls. And I think that's perhaps pushed it back just slightly. So that's my understanding. So that has not gone out yet, and I'll hold on to them until it's time. I have put them all into one sheet. So I will eventually, once it goes out, I'll eventually share that with all the MUDs, so you can kind of see where each MUD answered the questions compared to all the others.
That'll be interesting.
It is interesting, but we'll be able to see that. Did have the operations report. There was an add-on this month. We're kind of doing some revamping, giving you a little bit more information on specific projects. And we're trying to just, make sure that we identify those projects as they relate to the specific MUD itself. I recognize, the front sheet's not your MUD, but we're trying to identify, okay, this is MUD 47. And so if as you go through this, we'll try to identify, if there's anything related to a specific MUD, you can kind of pick that out. So
I think
we're
it's
getting,
good. I think it's great what you did there. I think it's good that, people ask a lot of questions about, hey, what's going on research in Gosling? And even though it's not our MUD, it's nice that you can at least respond because you're part of Woodlands Water. So, when a neighbor might ask or somebody might question you.
yes, and I think the overall message that Kim and I have been working on is just to include more information. We're doing a lot of things behind the scenes, and we kind of take it for granted because it's our daily work, but we don't necessarily share all those details. And so that's what we're going to start doing. And that's so it added maybe another page or so, but it's got a lot more information than it.
That's right.
So
Right.
we'll continue with that.
Is there any update on Lake Robbins when that's gonna open?
I do not have an update on that. I don't know.
Does that involve SJRA at all, or?
I don't think so.
So,
No, it involved us early on because they, were gonna run into, a water line that was sitting there, because they're doing some, drainage improvements.
do you
there.
have any idea, knowing what's going on?
No, nobody's reached out on anything related to that to us because we have nothing to do with it.
My understanding at the beginning that it was gonna be about a 3-month project.
And I think we're at least in the month 4 now.
Right at 3 or 4 right now, I agree, so. I can certainly reach out and see if I can find an update on it.
Well, I'll contact them. I'm just curious
So we
myself.
don't have to do the drive around
Yeah,
to get across. And that's all I had this month.
Any questions for John Masters before? Yeah. John, do you have anything this morning?
I just wanted to, well, you've got your communications report there in the packet, and the only thing I really wanted to hit on was the annual update. Just make sure you guys are solid on that. One last round of comments or questions? Okay. All right.
All right, looks fine.
That'll go out with next month's bill, of course, and we'll send that out electronically and post it online too. All right. Thank you.
Oh, well, you guys have done a great job with the, it's here. It'd be nice if you did a open house for the residents, like on a Saturday, and come see your Woodlands Water Building and
Good idea.
it really looks like, it's pretty nice thing.
Yeah, we're in phase 2 of paint, which is, we wanted to do the public areas first. Now we're into the offices. We've got about 2/3 of that done. Been working on the weekends. The contractor has, like I said, the TVs will be up here in the next couple of weeks. And then fire security systems will be upgraded probably in a couple months. There's some design that's required on the fire side.
That looks great, really does. All right, trustees report, I think everything's in there for you. The only thing that we discussed that you can read in there is on the excess funds. And then also on page 76, Ed Shackelford gave a kind of like an update on the scheduled meetings that item 13 was about location. You can see where what they're going to talk about at each one of the meetings. So you can read that in there. Item 18, recess in the closed session. We have no need to do that. Item 19, reconvene. Item 20, anything you want to put on next month's meeting? Okay, moving on to item number 21. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Second.
All right, all in favor,
Beat you
say
to
aye. Motion carries.
24 minutes.
Wow.
Well,